Welcome back to Turf Talk, Hall of Fame edition. Vance, we talked a few weeks ago about the names up for enshrinement to the Hall of Fame, and now it's time to talk about the names on our personal ballots. They're due on Wednesday. Have you made your selections?
I have made my selections. I only went 3 deep here, and for me, it was a decision to do tactical voting. I'm supporting horses and connection and human connections that will probably need my help in order to get induction to the Hall of Fame. They're not the most popular choices out there. For my lone equine horse, I used Goldikova, 3-time Breeders' Cup Mile winner, multiple Group 1 winner in Europe, one of the best turf milers we've seen in this century. And on the human side, I went old school. I went with trainer David Whiteley, who won the Belmont Stakes in 1979, trained several champions in that era. And again, for the jockey, I supported Craig Perret.
All right, and was Whiteley on last year? Did you vote for him then?
I did vote for him as well, and Perret last year
So
as
2
well.
repeats, and I have 1 repeat, and that's Victor Espinoza, who is my lone human on my ballot. I also only chose 3. 3-time Derby winner and Triple Crown is enough for me. He's won many other big races as well, but I feel like the Kentucky Derby, some disagree, some think maybe it's too overvalued, too important in the eyes of some, but you win that race 3 times and have a bunch of other stuff to go with it. He's more accomplished than Calvin Borel, for instance, who is already in, largely because of those 3 Derby wins. So to me, Victor fits. Horse-wise, we agree on Goldikova. You highlighted her highlights perfectly, so I won't go there. Giopani, for me, is probably more in the vein of what your tactical voting. I don't think he'll get in, but I thought it was a Hall of Fame career, and part of the reason for me, contextually, is I felt like around that time with horses like Goldikova, and then we saw most recently Tepin and Wise Dam, but I feel like Giopani was sort of this first wave of American horses. Granted, he had some international connections and background with the breeding, but U.S.-based horses that sort of put our turf males on the map with the races he won, and just opened up that division in a way I hadn't seen since I was involved in the sport. So that's a nod in that direction.
Yeah, there was definitely a fallow period earlier in this century, I think, with American-based turf horses. We saw a lot of Europeans coming over and plundering all the major prizes in the Breeders' Cup and associated prep races. And you're right, you can kind of look back now and see that Giopani was part of that first wave, and we ultimately got all those horses that you mentioned plus others. So he was a 2-time grass champion, and just for me, I thought his 2009 campaign, his first championship campaign, I thought was really good. 2010, I think he only won maybe two stakes appearances that particular year, ran lots of seconds and thirds. Right. I think that kind of influenced me to maybe hold off on supporting him, and thinking that maybe, despite being a 2-time grass champion, it might not be quite qualified right now to get in.
And I'm interested to see ultimately where the votes lie. I think Goldikova is probably the biggest slam dunk. Otherwise, I mean, I've heard it argued both ways with Garrett Gomez. Some think his untimely death will end up vaulting him to the Hall of Fame. Others feel like it'll be held against him. For me, I hate to, not making light of it, I hate to, I guess, use it as a political statement. I'm not going to vote for Garrett Gomez until I can vote for P-Val. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, and I'll go back to my original tactical voting. I think a guy like Craig Perret, who had a couple classic wins, 6, 7 Breeders' Cup wins, did the bulk of his work back in the 1970s and 80s, a time when I think a lot of the voters today might not remember too clearly. I think he probably, and along with P-Val, probably deserves induction before Garrett.
Yeah, all right, and certainly before Robbie, I think, is the other jockey.
Yeah.
Who did just get his 5,000th win, rare air indeed, but, you stack the big wins of these guys up, and, they, to me, tower over the others, so well said there, and, we'll see how the voting shakes out. Wouldn't shock me if Goldikova is the only one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Victor Espinoza is finally going to get in for sure. So. He deserves to be in. I'm with you on his credentials as far as his classic victories and what he's done with horses like California Chrome in recent years. But he just simply doesn't need my help getting there, and kudos to him if this is his year.
All right, well, those are due Wednesday, and I'm not sure when they actually announce who gets in, but we'll squeeze the lemon dry and talk about the actual future inductees when that happens. And we'll be back next week. I guess we'll really start talking Derby on all our channels. Final points races this weekend. Who you got on top?
I had McCracken
Right,
on
that's-
top, but after losing to the Maiden in the Bluegrass, I'm starting to get a little wobbly on him. But I've got a brand new piece out on brisnet.com this afternoon. Check it out. I'm kind of going over the top 20 Derby point earners so far before the Arkansas Derby. I've got a little brief mention on every one of them. So
All right.
check that
Did
out.
you
to
take
see who
one
you
liner
like.
out?
I did take one
Okay.
liner out, unfortunately.
All right, well, that moves Classic Empire to 20th, and I'm not wobbly yet, but I'm going to need a win this weekend for him to stay on top of my poll.
We'll find out.
Yep, James will find out in person, so I think I'll be with you for On Point, actually.
Excellent.
All right, join us later in the week and next week.